this video, we will learn about how cells were discovered. In 1660,
Students, in this video we are going to learn about the history of cell. What is this? This is the revision class or revision video of unit 5, right? So let us revise our unit 5 through this video.
55, Robert Hooke, a famous scientist, decided to observe a part of the bark of a tree called the cork under a simple magnifying device. He observed thin slices of a cork under a very simple magnifying instrument. He noticed partition boxes in the cork. Some say these boxes appeared like a honeycomb, a hexagonal structure that is found on the inside of a beehive. Hooke thought it resembled a prayer room, where one box was separated from the other by a wall or a partition. These prayer rooms were called cells, so Hooke named these boxes cells. However, for the next 150 years, not much was known about the structure and function of the cell. It was only after the discovery of a much more powerful microscope that these structures could be magnified and scientists were able to learn more about the cell. Scientists observed living organisms such as onions under a microscope and found that all living organisms are made of cells.
Now let us learn about the parts of a cell. Organisms are made up of different type of cells. For example, animals are made up of animal cells. Plants are made up of plant cells. The basic components of a cell are cell membrane, that is also called plasma membrane. Second part is cytoplasm. In the figure you can see both animal cell and plant cell, in which cell membrane and cytoplasm are shown. Third important part of a plant cell and animal cell is its nucleus. Here you can see the nucleus in both kind of cells, that is animal cells and plant cells. Plant cells have additional layer outside the cell membrane called cell wall. Here in this diagram you can see the cell wall. A cell can be compared to a factory. Just as a factory has different parts performing different functions, cells also have different parts that perform different functions. Let us learn about each of the parts of a cell. Just like the gate monitors everything going in and out of the factory, the plasma membrane monitors everything going in and out of the cell. It separates one cell from another cell, right? The plasma membrane separates the contents of the cell from the external medium surrounding it. It controls what goes in and comes out of the cell. So, we can summarize the functions of the plasma membrane as: number 1, it separates one cell from another. Number 2, it separates the contents of the cell from the external medium surrounding it. The third one is it controls what goes in and comes out of the cell. Next, let us learn about the cytoplasm. Here, the cytoplasm of an animal cell is shown. Just as factory floor is the workspace of the factory where workers carry out their daily activities, the cytoplasm is the workspace of the cell. The cytoplasm is a jelly-like fluid that occupies all the empty space in a cell. It is composed of mainly of water. Functions of the cytoplasm: number 1, it gives shape and structure to the cell. Number 2, it contains smaller parts of the cell called organelles. Organelles are small parts in the cell that perform different functions. For example, mitochondria produces energy and vacuoles store food. Next part is the nucleus. Here you can see the nucleus of an animal cell. Just like the boss takes all the decisions of the factory, the nucleus makes all the decisions of the cell. We have learned about the three main parts of the cell. Let us learn about the cell wall found in the plant cells. Cell wall or fencing. Just like the fence is the outermost layer of extra security and structure in some factories, the cell wall is the outermost layer providing additional protection and support to some cells. It is an additional layer found in plant cells, algae, fungi, and some bacteria. It provides additional protection against external environmental factors like high winds and change in temperature since plants cannot move. It also provides structure and support to the cells. For example, plants do not have bones or a skeletal system, yet they manage to remain upright because of this rigid outer layer. Now we will learn about the structure and functions of the nucleus.
What is common among the organisms shown on the screen? They are all made up of cells. They could be made up of a single cell or millions of cells. Most cells have a few features in common. They have a cell membrane, which is a flexible wall with pores. The membrane separates one cell from another. It gives the cell its shape and controls the movement of materials in and out of the cell. For example, it allows nutrients to pass in and waste materials to pass out. In addition to the cell membrane, plant cells also have a cell wall which surrounds the cell membrane. The cell is filled with a jelly-like substance called the cytoplasm. Different parts of the cell, called organelles, float in the cytoplasm. The largest organelle is the nucleus. It is the control center of the cell. If we compare the human body to a cell, the nucleus will be the brain. Just like the brain tells different body parts what to do, the nucleus tells the different organelles of the cell what to do and how to do it. Just like the cell, the nucleus is also surrounded by a nuclear membrane. This is a double membrane with pores called nuclear pores. These pores control what enters and exits the nucleus. The nuclear membrane separates the nucleus from the cytoplasm. The nucleus also has a ball-like structure called the nucleolus, which plays a role in making proteins and transporting them. The nucleus also has thread-like structures known as chromosomes. Chromosomes carry genes. Genes are the units that carry information about the characteristics that are passed on from the parent cells to the cells of the offspring. This is known as genetic or heredity information. Chromosomes are considered to be the genetic material of the cell. When you see a newborn baby, you are able to notice a few things about the baby's appearance that it has in common with its mother, and a few others that are in common with its father. This is because the baby gets its genes from its parents. So, we learned about the cell and the nucleus present in the cell. These types of cells are known as eukaryotic cells. Eu means new and karyon means nucleus. Animals, plants and fungi all have eukaryotic cells. That is, cells that have a well-defined nucleus with the genetic material inside it. Organisms such as bacteria and blue-green algae are made up of cells that are much smaller than eukaryotic cells. These cells have genetic material that just floats in their cytoplasm. It is not inside a nucleus or enclosed by a nuclear membrane. Their cells are known as prokaryotic cells. Pro means primitive or old, and karyon means nucleus. Let us summarize. So today, we learnt about the nucleus. It is the largest organelle of the cell and has different parts: the nuclear membrane, nuclear pores, the nucleolus, and chromosomes. We also learned that cells with a well-defined nucleus are called eukaryotic cells. Organisms that have eukaryotic cells are called eukaryotes. Cells in which the genetic material floats in the cytoplasm are called prokaryotic cells. Organisms that have prokaryotic cells are called prokaryotes.
Now we will learn about the shapes and the functions of the cell. Each of the diagram given below represents different type of cells. These cells have different shapes and colors. Let us observe each of these cells one by one. Here is red blood cell or RBC. Red blood cells are red in color. They have disc-like structure. They do not have a nucleus. Size of red blood cell is 0.6 micrometer in diameter. Function of the red blood cell or RBC is that they carry oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood. The structure of red blood cells is like a disc, and it helps the cell perform its functions as given under. The disc's shape helps the cell move fast. Since the RBC is a flexible and a small cell, it can move easily and quickly. The absence of a nucleus increases the amount of space in the cell, thereby increasing the amount of oxygen the cell can carry. It is white blood cell or WBC. Its structure is that these cells are pale and white in color. The boundary of the cell does not have fixed shape. It is flexible, hence the cells are irregularly shaped. It contains a nucleus and size of the white blood cell is 15 micrometer in diameter. It is about 25 times bigger than the red blood cell. Function of the white blood cell is that it fights and kills the infectious cells. How does the structure of the WBC help to kill infectious cells? The flexibility of WBC helps in move easily through the blood vessels and reach the site of infection. Since it is irregularly shaped, it can change shape and to engulf infectious cells and kill them. The presence of nucleus in the cell is important for the control and coordination of its actions. Here is the diagram of muscle cell. Muscle cells are long and cylindrical in shape. They are found in bundles. Size of a muscle cell is 10 to 50 micrometer wide and 1 to 40 long. The width of the muscle cell is comparable to the white blood cell, but its length is about 1000 times more. Functions of the muscle cell are: muscle cells help with the movement of different body parts by contracting and relaxing. Why are muscle cells long? Why are they found in bundles? Long muscle cells can easily contract and relax. Body parts need a lot of energy to move. The existence of many muscle cells in the bundles help provide energy to the site of movement. Here is the nerve cell. Nerve cells are long and thin. They have branched endings. The size of a nerve cell, the diameter can vary between 4 to 100 micrometer and the length between 2.5 centimeter to 1 meter. It can be up to 25 times longer than the muscle cell. Its functions are: nerve cells control and coordinate the functions of the different parts of the body by sending and receiving messages. Nerve cells are long and thin, which allows them to transmit signals to distant parts of the body. The branches help the cell to collect and transmit multiple signals. Here you can see the summary. In this video, we will learn why reproduction is essential in human beings or animals.
Reproduction is the biological process by which new organisms are produced by their parents. These new organisms are called offspring. Reproduction is essential to maintain life on Earth. What would happen if living organisms did not reproduce? Do you think so many plants and animals would exist if they did not reproduce? For example, the lifespan of a butterfly is about 12 months. This means one butterfly can only live up to a year. If butterflies did not reproduce, new butterflies would not have been born, and there would be no butterflies on our planet after a point in time. All living organisms have the ability to reproduce. This ability is important for the continuity of life on Earth. Dogs also reproduce. They give birth to puppies that later grow on to become adult dogs. Cows give birth to calves, which grow up to become adult cows. Hens lay eggs, which hatch to produce chicks. These chicks then grow up to be hens. Even microorganisms, such as bacteria and algae, go through the cycle of reproduction to produce more microorganisms. We exist on this planet because humans have reproduced generation after generation. It is because of reproduction that we have a wonderful and diverse ecosystem of living beings around us. Otherwise, life as we know it would not exist.
Learn about types of reproduction. If you cut and bury the stem of a rose plant in soil, will it grow into another plant? Yes, the stem will grow into another rose plant through the process of vegetative propagation. The vegetative propagation of rose requires only one rose plant. This rose plant from which the new plant grows is called the parent. Vegetative propagation is an example of asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, only one parent is involved. The new rose plant is known as offspring. When the rose stem is planted in the soil, the cells of the rose branch divide and multiply to form roots and the shoot of the offspring. So the offspring has cells identical to the parent. Therefore, the offspring is identical to the parent. Tomatoes are produced by the process of sexual reproduction in plants. Pollen grains from the stamen, that is male reproductive part of one plant, are transferred to the pistil, that is female reproductive part of another plant, through an agent such as an insect. The pollen grains from male plant contains the male reproductive cell. It is transferred to the ovary of the female plant through the stigma and the style, where it meets the female reproductive cell of the female gamete or the female gamete. The male and female gametes fuse to form a zygote, which further develops into the tomato seed and finally forms the tomato fruit. The seeds of tomato are used to produce more tomato plants. Here you can see these two flowers are involved in the process of pollination. These two flowers may be referred to as the parent of the new plant. Formation of fruits and seeds in plants happen through the process of sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, two parents are involved. Since the zygote is formed from the fusion of male and female gamete, it will be similar to both the parents. It will not be completely identical to any of the parents. So, we have learned that the plants reproduce sexually or asexually. Similarly, there are two types of reproduction in animals: sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Here is the comparison between sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Students, what is binary fission? It is a type of asexual reproduction in which parents reproduce by dividing itself into two. Right? What is budding? It is a type of asexual reproduction in which new individuals are developed from buds. Now we will learn about the sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, an offspring is produced from two parents, a male and a female. Stages of sexual reproduction. First stage is production of gametes, second is fertilization, third is development of embryo, and fourth is birth of offspring. Summarize sexual reproduction as: in sexual reproduction, an offspring is produced by two parents, a male and a female. Sexual reproduction takes place in plants as well as in animals. There are four stages of sexual reproduction: production of gametes, fertilization, development of the embryo, and birth of the offspring. The production of the male and female gametes takes place in the male and female reproductive systems, respectively. The male and female gametes fuse to form the zygote. This process is called fertilization. Students, what are viviparous organisms? It is the viviparous organisms are those organisms in which the embryo develops inside the body of the parent and the parent gives birth to the offspring. Right? What are oviparous organisms? Organisms in which the embryo develops outside the body in an egg laid by the parent organisms are oviparous organisms. What is metamorphosis? Metamorphosis is the series of drastic changes that an offspring undergo to resemble its parent as an adult. Male reproductive system consists of a pair of testes, two sperm ducts, and a penis. Diagram you can see in your book. Sperms are produced by the testes, transported through the sperm duct, and transferred to the uterus by the penis. Male reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries, two oviducts, and a uterus. Ova are produced by the ovaries and fertilized in the oviduct. Embryo development happens in the uterus of the female. Male and female gametes fertilize to form a zygote. Fertilization happens in the oviduct. The zygote moves down the oviduct and divides into a ball of cells to form the embryo. The embryo implants on the uterus wall for further development. The embryo develops body parts. When this development is complete, it is known as a fetus. When the fetus is fully developed, the mother gives the birth to the baby. We'll have a recap of Unit 5. Reproduction. It is the biological process through which new organisms or offsprings are produced by a single parent or two parents. It is important to ensure the continuation of species from one generation to another generation. reproduction is of two types: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, one parent is involved. In sexual reproduction, two parents are involved. Examples of asexual reproduction are budding and binary fission. In budding, buds develop and break away from the parent. Example is Hydra. Binary fission, the nucleus and the cytoplasm of the parent divides into two identical independent offsprings. Example is amoeba. The offspring is identical to the parent. Here you can see budding. Here you can see binary fission. It takes place in amoeba. Sexual reproduction stages are four. First stage is production of gametes, second is fertilization, third is development of the embryo, and fourth is the birth of the offspring. Production of gamete. A gamete is a single reproductive cell. Male and female gametes are produced in the male and female reproductive organs respectively. Production of gametes. Male gametes are called sperms, female gametes are called ova. In human males, millions of sperms are produced by the testes. In human females, every month one ovum is produced by one of the ovaries. Fertilization is the fusion of a male and female gamete. Nucleus of the sperm and the ovum fuse together. The fusion results in formation of single cell called zygote. It contains genetic information from both the parents. Fertilization can be internal or external. In humans, the sperm is transferred by the penis to the uterus where it travels to the oviduct. Fertilization takes place in oviduct. The cell of the zygote divides and multiplies to form an embryo. The duration of the development of the embryo differs in organisms. In humans, it takes 9 months. In many organisms, the embryo develops inside the parent body. Such organisms are called viviparous. In some organisms, the embryo develops outside the parent body. In an egg, such organisms are called oviparous. In humans, the zygote divides and travels along the oviduct. The developing embryo implants on the uterus wall. In the uterus, the embryo develops into a fetus. Birth of the offspring. The parent, mostly female, gives birth to the offspring in viviparous organisms. X has to produce the offspring in oviparous organisms. Humans are viviparous. Metamorphosis. After the birth, the offspring develops into an adult. In some organisms, the offspring looks very different from the adult parent. The offspring undergoes a series of changes to the finally resemble the adult. This is called metamorphosis.